So, did any of you guys hear Mark's keynote where he talked about the fourth industrial revolution? So this week he's been talking about the fourth industrial revolution and what's changing in the world. And I think there's a big misnomer that I keep hearing from people, which is that they think that artificial intelligence is actually going to replace people. And that artificial intelligence and all this technology we have is going to make it so that people are going to lose their jobs. We have some guests here from Japan, a country that has a population that's actually decreasing in size every year. And if they don't have automation, their economy will shrink. And if you follow the fact that the 25 to 35-year-old cohort is not backfilling the 55 to 65-year-old cohort, we probably have to keep the old people working longer. And we also have to figure out a way to bring in efficiencies so that the 25 to 35-year-olds won't have a deflation instead of an inflation impact on our economy. So how does that impact Jobscience? What is Jobscience doing in this area? Why am I talking about this? Now, I know Richard's probably heard this pitch one time before when I came over to see him in Tiburon a couple weeks ago. Hi, Colin. How are you? So a little jet lag there. So we have quite an international audience. But basically, there are four things I keep hearing about over and over again from recruiters all over the world. One is, why can't we have our own Upwork? Why can't we have our own system where people can bypass our recruiters and go directly to the source of information and choose who they want to have work for them? And there's pressure that recruiters are feeling from folks who want to self-service. The reality is that self-service has real problems. So if you talk to Stefan Casserole, who's the CEO of Upwork, he'll tell you it took 10 years and hundreds of millions of dollars to get to a platform today that does about $1 billion a year in transactions. But it was 2 or 3 company fails to get there. And most staffing companies are like, well, we want to have this Upwork capability. But in their mind, that means they're just going to be making commissions without having to pay the recruiters. So it's got some fundamental problems. So people are asking about this because they see it as a challenge, but they don't necessarily know what the solution is. And so the question for Jobscience is, well, where does that fit into our world? We also hear people batting around the term RPO, which is a misnomer for a lot of them. RPO to us today reflects that recruiters who get paid on a contingency basis to do work will be far less likely to be able to survive in that business line as the supply of candidates decreases, because you can't operate on a contingent basis when you have no supply. It's like being a realtor in a neighborhood that has really expensive houses, but there's only one for sale. That won't support a market. So what's going to happen is that staffing agencies are going to have to become like the Queen of England, own all the land and lease the people to people, and be their agent and trade them back and forth. And for corporates, they're not going to be able to compete, because fundamentally corporate recruiters are farmers, not hunters. And so if they're not hunters, they're going to be looking for automation and intelligence tools to help them become more effective or make them more hunter-like. But fundamentally, they're going to be farmers. So they're going to go to professional recruiters in the industry and ask them to come in and take over the hunting so that they can continue to till the fields and manage their internal people, their hiring managers who are not cooperative, who want somebody to yell at, and need an administrator to administrate the process. So these are kind of big issues because they're going to impact how you evolve your business. The other thing that we're hearing a lot about is hiring as content. So what we're seeing if you guys have been at Dreamforce and you see them talking about the customer support cloud and case management and all the things they're doing, it's becoming more apparent that if you publish your knowledge base on the internet, that your knowledge base becomes all your SEO terms and all your search terms, and people find you that way. So one of the questions is, how are staffing companies using all the resumes, which is your greatest source of data, for search engine optimization, for marketing positioning, so people will find you based on the quality of the data that you're sitting on? The final thing is compliance. So GDPR, how many of you guys know what GDPR is? How many of you think you actually understand what GDPR is? No, yeah, 1 or 2 people, they think, right? But that's bold. That's quite bold. So I was just over in the UK a couple weeks ago sitting with some consultants in the GDPR area, and they didn't even think they totally understood what it meant to be GDPR. What I think it means to all of us is privacy is going to be something that impacts our business, especially as our businesses are about displaying the data to the public to get people to come find us, to be the agents of people. Our whole relationship with the data and our relationship with the customers and our relationship with the candidates and the contractors is in for change. So as Jobscience is thinking about our roadmap, we're trying to figure out, well, what can we do that will ultimately save our customers time that they can say, well, we saved this time, so therefore we made this money back. Now, I can save you time. In fact, I was talking to a customer that was saving a ton of time. I said, what are you doing with all the time that you're saving? We haven't figured out what to do with it yet. I'm like, well, what do you mean you haven't? Well, we don't really want to fire those people. They don't have as much to do. They're kind of, walking around aimlessly sometimes. We're just waiting for them to retire. And that doesn't save you a lot of money. So if you're going to save time, you have to have plan B, which is once we save the time, what are we going to actually do with it? How are we going to retrain our people? What are we going to ask them to do in their new roles? And then finally, how do we define value? Now, what we're hearing from our customers is that the idea of having everything in one place is very valuable to them. And the reason it's so important to have everything in one place is because as you save time, you want to be able to go back to the same place you're already trained and ready to use the system to be able to do a new task, especially if your business is going to evolve and there are going to be new challenges that we're facing. So what I try and look for are what are things that customers are telling us. And we had a customer who recorded 3 hours worth of interviews with their recruiters, and I listened to those interviews. It was really great. No one had ever sent me 3 hours of interviews of what people thought. And everything I listened to came down to comments about time. And people who could say that they were saving time were happy, and people who didn't understand what to do with their time were frustrated. So had a meeting with a customer yesterday that was saying, we're looking for how can we get more efficiency out of the system. And I said, well, what have you set as your goal? Well, we just want more efficiency. I'm like, well, how do you measure more efficiency? Well, we just want it. And I'm like, well, how are you managing against it? Well, we expect we're going to get it. So you have to, if you're going to have a single system, if you're going to have this approach, you really have to define where you start and where you finish. And again, for us, everything we're looking at building at Jobscience, if we can't define that it's either going to save you time, it's going to directly take something you're already spending money on and displace it, and that people are going to perceive it as being valuable and not burdensome, then we're probably not going to add it to the product. Okay? So where does that take us? The last thing is, why are we built on Salesforce? Ultimately, if you don't think the system, everyone takes this for granted, but I'm going to tell a little story because I have a captive audience here. I almost got out of the software business about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I went to a hospital to give a presentation. And I used to carry a pager around because I knew that every time my pager went off, it meant all the servers were about to go down. And we had 150 hospitals around the U.S. that we were running all their recruiting. And let me tell you, when 150 hospitals can't recruit, you get a lot of phone calls. And our developers would go push out code whenever they wanted to push out code, not thinking about what was going to impact. And I got in my car. I was at this presentation, and can we get off the PowerPoint slides? Can you actually show us something live? Oh, no, you don't want to see the live stuff. The PowerPoint's much better. And I got in my car, and as I was driving home, I called my wife, and I said, I think I'm going to be a lawyer again. And she's like, why? I'm like, it's got to be more fun to be an attorney everyone hates. It's got to be a better job than giving a presentation when the servers are going down. And so I think what we don't really appreciate is that what Salesforce has really done is made computing a utility, like your power or your gas, that you can count on, that it's going to be there. I mean, occasionally the lines will cross and burn down Napa, but when that doesn't happen, it's something that you can rely on, okay? So where does that leave us? Jobscience started off at its inception as being an applicant tracking system. Our original thesis when we started building on Salesforce was that corporate recruiters were going to understand that building talent pipelines and talent pools was going to be a great idea. What we miscalculated was the fact that we were selling to farmers, not to hunters. And what happened was the customers that reached out to us were all from the staffing business because they were like, hey, we want to put our business development and selling, and we want to combine it with our recruiting activities, and we want it to be in a single string. And McKinsey did a great research study for American Airlines about 20 years ago where they said the number of pilots in the U.S. was going to decrease at such a fast rate that if you just bought a CRM and put all the pilots in your CRM, that would be the best recruitment system you could have, because it was going to be like a simple Rolodex where you could find people. So if you have a hunting methodology and you want to have your business in one place that's efficient, that's why this is the right area to be in. Now, what that means is that if you're going to give your workers tools that have that synergy, you have to teach them how to sell and not just fulfill. So how are they going to use the tool to be more effective at generating more business? For us, we initially, again, pushed talent pipelines, then we started pushing data collection. That's where we started from. But where we've evolved is really starting to think about this as a communications platform, and how do you leverage the community so that you can use it as a marketing platform. And ultimately, and the guys at Talent have done some amazing stuff with community. And I love to tell the story. Richard came into his office in Australia, what, it was like 3 or 4 years ago, and he's like, we bought all these Virgin points from Richard Branson, and we're going to do this thing where we're going to give people points for working for us. And I was like, that's genius, because if we have a shrinking pool of people, having a really loyal set of, he said, in Sydney, if you're a contractor, you don't get invited to the Christmas party at the end of the year. There's no party for you to go to, so we decided to throw the best party in Sydney so everyone would want to work for us. And he was thinking about 10 miles ahead of the rest of the world in terms of, hey, if the pool is shrinking and we want to be a value player, how do we manage that value? And how I think of Richard as Jerry Maguire, and all of his contractors are Cuba Gooding Jr. And ultimately, he's showing them the quan, the money, show me the money. But they don't just want the money, they want the love with the money. They want everything. And ultimately, if you're in the recruiting business, whether you're a corporate recruiter or whether you're in a staffing company, if you don't show the candidates the quan, they've got lots of choices. So they're going to go somewhere else. So he just didn't know he's Jerry Maguire in the remake. And I understand that he's looking for a new wife, so it could work out. We'll just find you a good assistant. So where do we go from the evolution? Well, in the winter release that we did about a year ago. Sorry, 1 second. I love when people call me in the middle of a demo. It's my favorite. It's also awesome to hang up on them, or they're going to hear the whole presentation. So we released 7 features, and it was our first Lightning release. And David Brooks would say Lightning was at its early stages about a year and a half ago, and now there have been 3 releases by Salesforce of Lightning, and we think that it's finally at a place where it's, what would you say, David?
It's now ready for prime time.
Yeah, it's ready for prime time, whereas a year ago it was ready for Space Lab. And we launched 42 customers so far on Lightning, so we know it works. It's just they were the early adopters, okay? We then did another release almost 6 months later where we delivered scoring. So when someone applies for a job, if you want to apply the scoring methodology algorithm that we built in our search directly to every candidate who applies, we can auto-score them. We delivered, wow, someone's really persistent. We delivered Napili communities. We delivered a whole new email integration system. We have these beautiful templates where you can have visual templates so that if you don't want to actually read the thing, you can look at the picture and know which template it is that you want to pull. We built a back office system that was in its first iteration for the US market. And then we built an all Japanese version. So my team in Japan, I said, we can't really go to market in Japan anymore until you translate the entire system to Japanese. And they did. And we actually have clients who are now operating in Jobscience completely in Japanese, which was that was actually a big deal to prove that we could do that. But what we found was we were delivering new releases every 6 months to our customers, and they were getting a little overwhelmed, and the attendance and the mind share that we were getting from people was going down because it was just too much, too quickly. So we're now moving to a 9-month cycle where we're going to release a new release every 9 months instead of every 6 months. The other thing that we're going to do is that when we build new features, while they won't be generally available, if we have customers telling us, hey, this is a problem we're really trying to solve, we can go into our inventory of things that are not yet GA and see if that's something they want to entertain or use before the next big release. So what's coming? There are 3 markets that we're going to be focused on, and the features that we're building are going to be focused on these 3 sets of buyers. First off, if you're in corporate and you don't hire more than 1,000 people a year, we probably don't want you as a customer. Okay, you have to have 1,000 hiring transactions a year for us to have you as a customer. You have to love Force.com and have some commitment to wanting to be on Force.com. So if you like Force.com, we might make a little exception on the 1,000 hires a year, but you have to be committed to this platform. And the third thing is we're going to start leveraging our partners. So Sage, we're working with Financial Force, we're working with a whole series of vendors who have tools where we can improve their experience by tying Jobscience to them. Working with Salesforce Marketing Cloud and tying the journeys in the Salesforce Marketing Cloud directly to our system. But they have to be where people in corporate have a real purpose of wanting to be on the system. Then in staffing, we want people who do at least 1,000 placements a year. That's going to be the sweet spot, is 1,000 placements is the bare minimum. And then we're going to be the ERP system of record. That's what we want to move towards. Now, do you see this third category, pro services, RPO, and MSP? So we actually think that staffing companies and professional service companies are going to start mind melding into more than one business line, where they're going to have a managed service business where they manage resourcing by project. They're going to have a pro service business where they actually manage the projects. And then they're going to have a traditional sort of RPO where their own people are the consultants. And so we are looking for people in that area that have 1,000 assignments. So having folks like McKinsey and Advisory Board and North Highland Consulting and Slum, that's the type of consulting firm. Having folks like Brooksource, who we're taking live, who has a big MSP business here in the U.S., those are the type of clients that fit in that third category. And it's really different than pure staffing because it's where pure staffing is going to evolve to. Okay, so what does that mean? So for us, what we're trying to build at Jobscience is a scaled recruitment platform for the fourth industrial revolution. I'm stealing a little from Mark's fourth industrial revolution stuff, but what the hell does that mean? It means there are 6 areas we have to be really good at. We have to show you how to use community in more than just one way. How do I use a community for all the different people that I want to engage with? Not just a community for my contractors, maybe I have a community for my sub-vendors, maybe I have a community for my customers, maybe I have a community for my alumni, maybe I have a community for my employees. But how do I start leveraging community over and over again as my platform for communicating to people who I don't have a daily relationship with, but I have an ongoing relationship with? Then integration. So we've just completed a ton of integrations. I'll talk about it in a second, but how do we integrate to the core systems? Astute Payroll, we've integrated in Australia. We're talking to the guys at Fast Track. We've integrated now with ADP, Paychecks. We've integrated QuickBooks, Accounting Seed, Intact, all these financial systems. Why are we integrating with those data systems? Because ultimately we think that data is going to feed back into the recruitment process so that you start making decisions about where you make money. Hey, where should I send this candidate? Well, I should send them where I actually make money. Or which hiring manager should I not send candidates to? Because look at the hourly rates of the people I'm sending them to. So Business Cloud. What's Business Cloud? Our customers have bought Salesforce and they don't understand how to use it to actually manage generating business. They're using it as a recruiting system. They're thinking about it as a recruiting system. They're not thinking it as a business generation system. Finance. So what are we doing there? It's how do we give you commissioning, time to cash. Time to cash is really collecting the time and then turning it into an invoice. We don't want to do your payroll calculation, so we want to tie to your payroll system because that's something we want to stay on of. But everything up to the point of payroll, and why that is important to us is that's driving our forecasting that I'll talk about in just a moment. But we're working a lot on forecasting and setting quotas and goals, and we need to have that financial information somewhere in our system to make that work. Intelligence is the ability to how do we take information and push it to you in the different places in the system you live so you can make better decisions. And then finally, how can we still be awesome in recruiting when we have all these other things going on? And we think most of the awesomeness in recruiting is figuring out all the stuff we should cut out of the system, not more stuff to add to the system. Because if we hear over and over again from recruiters, what they're saying is they hate process, they hate workflows, they hate having to follow stages. So how do we make it so that they feel like this is something that's helping them? It's ultimately looking at their user behaviors and taking the system down to what they use and then picking 1 or 2 things to make them do, not 15 things. So how does this translate into the next release? Let's see if I can just get my slide to go forward. So first off, I talked about some of these integrations. We don't think of integrations as a cloud, we think of it as a foundation. We have a partnership with Jitterbit. We're working with the National Health Service in the UK, rolling Jobscience out to the NHS, and we're using the Jitterbit platform to do a lot of the integration work. But integration is an essential part of everything we do because it makes the system more effective and it makes it so your users aren't having to go back and forth to different systems. So what's in the Recruiting Cloud? There are going to be 8 new features released in February. Okay, now there might be 7, one might fall off, but I'm going to at least walk you through, that's my safe harbor statement. I'm going to walk you through the 8 features that we plan on releasing. Candidate Insights is going to be a bar over the candidate record where you can push selected data to that bar to see exactly where does that candidate stand with your key statistics in your process. How many jobs are they being proposed for? How many placements have they completed? How many days since the last job they were on? What are the important key pieces of data that your recruiters need to see instantaneously to be able to make an up-down decision about what to do with that piece of value for you? Candidate coding. How do we make it easier for the recruiters to start coding the skills of the candidates and bring that to the forefront of what they're doing? CV parsing data validation. So what we see over and over again from our customers when they start to talk to us about search is they're like, oh, we can't seem to find this piece of information. You're like, yeah, because only 0.1% of your recruiters have put this piece of information in the system, so it's no shock when they can't find that information in the system. And the reason that recruiters love Boolean search and they hate filtered search is because the quality of their data is garbage. So the only way to improve the quality of data is to have less data that you filter against choose the data that you filter against that you have lots of data on, and then have more data validation. So we're introducing a whole series of data validation tools so that when you parse a resume, the system will instantaneously say, hey, these 5 fields are missing. Do you want to add them now, or do you just want to stick it in the system? But it's going to at least give you some more options. NHS wanted a lot of stuff around due diligence checklists and scorecards. Hey, am I doing my job? Have I done all the things I need to do to move to the next stage in the process? So we're introducing scorecards and checklists that you can put in different parts of your system to ensure that people are complying with what you need them to do. We're delivering a scheduling engine. So any of you guys using Calendly? Does anyone know what Calendly is? One person. So what it does is, let's say Richard wants to send me an email that he wants to have lunch next week. Gail has to call Richard's assistant, back and forth. All these people have to go. I'm going to keep going, so let her know I'm just going to go as long as I want. Basically, what it does is you just send me a link. I choose a time in your calendar, and we don't have to go back and forth. We're going to integrate that into Jobscience because we think that's going to be the #1 thing to make recruiters happy, not having to make phone calls going back and forth. What we've also tied it to, we're doing a project for a large staffing company here in the U.S. They want all the candidates to actually go through filtering and screening before they actually even get the opportunity to have a phone screen. So the system will let you build teams of recruiters who are going to basically be able to put their schedules in, and the system will round robin to different recruiters who would do the filtering and the screening of those candidates at an industrial-like pace. Now, does that work for every business? No, and that's why we built the individual calendar scheduling system and the team scheduling system. I think that's actually a really awesome feature you guys are going to love. Now, what are we also doing? Federated search. So we've partnered up with Daxtra, and we're bringing the multi-resume search that Daxtra offers directly into the Jobscience Sourcing Center, so you can do everything from within the Sourcing Center. And the last thing is called job alerts. So candidates don't want to be emailed every time a job comes open, but if they're actually like a 92% match for a job, using our scoring algorithm, we can score the candidates, and when jobs come up, using that score, we can send messaging to the right candidates that the job is open, not to all the candidates the job is open. So I only have a couple more clouds to talk about, and they're much shorter than the recruiting cloud. 2 things. We're going to be releasing in February a compliance process so that if you have to comply with GDPR, you'll have the foundations of building your own compliance system within Salesforce to manage your compliance rules, processes, and corrective action. We're also going to be delivering compliance in InMail. So if you use our Mailgun system and you want every email in Mailgun to go to your compliance server so that you have a copy of every email that's ever gone out, especially as you need to show what you've done, that's going to be built into the email integrations. The last thing, or 2 other things, Business Cloud. Remember I was talking before that we have all these staffing customers that have bought us because they wanted to do selling, but they're not actually using the system to do selling. So we're like, okay, we've got to teach recruiters how to be more effective at selling and not just hope because they're using a CRM, they're going to get it by osmosis. So we're releasing 3 things. One's called Target Company Lists. This lets you build campaigns or groups of companies you actually want to go process. So if you're like, hey, you're one of my reps, I'm giving you 50 named accounts, here's your targeted company list. You'll be able to do your email, your SMS, your communication campaigns off that list. You'll have a marketing campaign system to actually develop, here's who I'm trying to market to, this is what my personal marketing plan is. So it's not like a marketing plan for the marketer, it's a marketing plan for the individual recruiter to kind of define their business plan for how they're going to go to market. And then finally, what we've heard from most of our customers is that their customers want data. And that data isn't just a presentation or resume. Sometimes it might be a W-2, sometimes it might be an I-9, sometimes it might be a Japanese governmental form. Thanks. There's all different types of information they want. So we built a system that lets you take all the data in Salesforce and put it into packs of data that you can send as a hyperlink to a customer with all the documents they've asked for, built into the system so you can track what documentation you're actually sending to your customer. And I think it's pretty cool. You'll have to see it to understand how cool it is. Now, on the Finance Cloud, we are in the process of delivering 9 or 10 of these right now in the US, but we built a time system, an invoicing system, a commission system, and a forecasting system. Terry, if you're interested in the forecasting system, is looking for volunteers who want to help us with the data that we're building, but we're building out data models for how to set quotas and goals for corporations and for staffing companies to say, hey, I've got 90 days, this is my quota, this is the industry standard, I want to manage it by branch, I want to manage it by all these factors. We will release a basic version of our forecasting tool, hopefully in February if it can make it. If not, it will maybe push the middle of the year, but that's one of the things that we're really interested in. I talked about the integrations before, so I don't need to beat that up anymore. So what comes after February? is there life for us after February? I didn't even know if there was going to be life after today, after last night. So, so on the fourth day of Dreamforce, there are really four concepts that are going to drive our development pipeline. How do we bring more semantics into search? So David Brooks, who runs our development team, do you have a master's in natural language processing?
I have a master's in electrical engineering, but I work in the natural language.
Yeah, and he likes to talk about Siri and all these things that were pretty cool. And my dad over there does a lot of math. Did some math in the Navy, did some math in different places. And so what we've been trying to figure out is how can we start taking natural language processing and math and apply it to what you're doing? Because they're much smarter than I am, but I know what you guys suffer through, and I'm trying to figure out how to take their smarts and apply it to what we do. So in this area, we're going to be buying lots of synonym data to do more semantics. So when you type something in wrong, we can make a suggestion to you as to what the right word might be, or you don't even have to think about what it would be. We're going to do the search based on the synonyms. That will probably be a big piece of work that we have to do over the next year, but it's increasing the power of search by using more synonym in the system. In the AI analytics space, what we're doing is trying to build data warehousing so that we can hold data and give you industry standard data. What's great about the UK is that you have so many public companies in the recruiting space that have to publish their data, and actually in Australia they keep a lot of this data also. We can take that data to determine what industry norms are for how many submittals to get to a job order, how much time should it take to fill a job, and then setting that into the forecasting. The idea is to make suggestions. So let's say I'm a recruiter and I just got an assignment, and the engine knows that after 48 hours, your chances of filling this job just drop by 50%. It should remind you that, hey, buddy, if you don't at least do one submittal by the next 2 hours, your chances of filling this job, yes, sure, you have a chance of winning the lottery, but good luck. You probably want to go work on something else. And that's a big piece. The third thing is bots. So right now, we've been using bots. If any of you have ever filled out a lead form on Jobscience, you'll have a charming girl named Katie Taylor respond to you. Katie Taylor is a bot. Katie Taylor responds to every lead we get electronically and has multiple dialogue conversations with people, and they have no idea. We had someone come in the last 2 days who wanted to meet Katie. They're like, I get all these emails from Katie. I really want to meet Katie. Okay? And so we're going, wow, this technology, when you want to be engaged, you want to believe that Katie Taylor is a human. You want to believe someone wants to service you. You want to believe someone wants to take care of you. That's true to candidates. The problem is you can't scale your business to have enough people to service everyone, so you need bots to start helping you do the servicing so you can have the cream rise to the top of the cup and not be stuck at the bottom. And then finally, it's messaging integration. So we believe that you're going to see over the next 12 months that everyone's mobile phones are going to get killed. And they're going to get killed because every business-to-business salesperson has realized that if they call your mobile phone, their chances of reaching you are 30 to 40%. And if they call your office phone, their chances are 0%. So what does that mean? What is that going to mean to us? Our emails got destroyed. Now our mobile phones are going to get destroyed. We're going to have to choose private messaging platforms that are our preference, that we choose who gets to talk to us. That's how we're really going to protect our privacy. So what are we going to do for you guys? We're going to figure out how to destroy that also. And how are we going to do it? We're going to tie to WhatsApp. We're going to tie to Facebook Messenger. We're going to tie to Pinterest, SMS, different tools to allow you to take the bots, communicate to people where they want to be communicated to in a way they want to be communicated to. The way we're not going to make people angry is we're only going to communicate to people who actually there's a reason to communicate to. And ultimately, we're going to use synonyms to help us drive the process of who even makes it on the initial list. So that's the future for us in this fourth industrial revolution as we work with our customers to actually solve the shortage of human capital problem. Because that's what we're really about. So thank you so much.